Astral travel is the experience of a person's consciousness leaving the physical body. It is similar to, but not the same as, a near-death experience. It's usually an involuntary experience, but it is said that a person can learn to project the consciousness at will. I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep, but I couldn't sleep because my mind was racing. At some point, I managed to slip into a state of feeling completely relaxed, even though my thoughts were still going. Then I blacked out. What happened next seemed like it lasted for a few minutes, but was probably just a few seconds long. The next thing I know, I'm outside, right below the bedroom window next to where I sleep. I was standing by the woodpile. Everything was crystal clear as the world looks when I'm awake. It wasn't like dream vision where things can be blurry or off. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be, and everything was crisp. I was standing facing the woods behind the house. My eyes were directed towards the birch tree between our shed and the Japanese knotweed stand. I realized this spot would be what I see from my bed if I could look through walls. I'm silently standing, but I can hear my thoughts. The same thoughts I'm thinking in bed. They're loud, as if they're echoing around me, but they are still in my head, just louder than I usually experience my thoughts, but also one step removed somehow. As I'm standing there looking at the woods, I suddenly see reflective orbs, greenish and moving towards me. It's hard to describe this, but the orbs were in pairs and sort of moving in a wave-like motion, as if multiple sets of eyes were floating out of the woods. Then all the orbs came together into a single pair. That's when I realized that the reflective orb pair were the eyes of a fox, and the fox was coming towards me. Then the thoughts in my head get really loud. The last words I remember hearing were incredibly loud. I thought, "Stop talking so much." And as that thought rang through my head, I faced the fox and saw it approaching me. All of this happened very quickly, and as it all came together with my heart racing, I felt like I was shoved back into my body. I realized I was still in bed and that not much time had passed. I hadn't fallen asleep either. It was very disorientating. Just to be clear, for those who doubt the possibility of astral projection from a Christian perspective, I am a devout Christian, and this experience happened to me while I was actually doing a 2-year intense study of the Bible. At the time, I didn't know anything about astral projection, the practice of it, or that it even existed. I was, however, a very lucid dreamer, but I can tell you this experience was far different to a lucid dream. This happened a few years ago, but I remember it as if it just happened last night. I was in bed with my wife, and I remember waking with my eyes closed to an extreme vibration throughout my entire body. It was incredibly intense, almost like I grabbed an electric fence. For whatever reason, I did not panic, but I did want to get up, so I did. I slowly rolled off the side of my bed, and when I stood up, I saw myself and my wife sleeping in the bed. At this point I knew I wasn't physically standing there, obviously, since I was staring at myself sleeping. But I also immediately knew this wasn't anything like a lucid dream. I decided to roam around the house and take advantage of what was happening. Everything in the house was exactly as it should be, nothing distorted like in a dream. What was different was that there was no feeling of temperature. This was in the middle of winter and the house was cold at night. Also, I was walking, but I couldn't feel the pressure of my footsteps. And I was breathing, but I couldn't feel the breath. I walked past my dresser and chose not to look into our big mirror on it. I felt like it would have been frightening for some reason. Then I went downstairs. I walked. I did not float. And still everything in the house looked exactly as it would when awake. I then went down to where our 2 dogs sleep in their own bed. I walked by them towards our car garage as I wanted to explore outside. I noticed, however, that they actually noticed me. When I walked by them, they picked their heads up and were staring in my direction, but not looking exactly at me. So I sat down on the floor and called them over. They actually did come over and they began sniffing around me and looked as though they were seeing through me and not right at me, smelling my presence but not completely seeing me. I stood up and walked out into the car garage. I then walked through the garage door just to see if I could. Once I got outside, again, everything was the same and in place, but I still felt no temperature, just a feeling of complete perfection. It felt so amazing, like nothing I have ever experienced before in my life. It's hard even to find words to describe it. At this point, I was standing in my driveway, looking up at the sky, and the stars seemed brighter than ever with a bluish glow in the sky. I then talked out loud for the first time in this experience. I said, "God, now would be a good time to maybe show me something." The moment I said that, I started floating straight up towards the sky, and more directly towards what appeared to be the moon, but with colours I have never seen before. As I got closer towards this moon, this incredibly beautiful landscape began to appear in the sky. There were rolling mountains and waterfalls that were blending into each other from all directions. Waterfalls going up, going down, and sideways. The land seemed like it was growing and expanding constantly. It was absolutely incredible. The grass was like nothing I have ever seen before and looked so amazing. I really wanted to walk on it, and so, as I approached the land, or it approached me, I went to put my foot on it, and then all of a sudden, I started getting pulled away. I looked around and there was a strange looking cord attached to me, and it seemed like it was pulling me back through all the ways I had come out, and eventually right back into my body on the bed, at which point I woke up, for real. It was an amazing experience. It only happened to me one other time, when I was in another country doing missionary work. I had the same exact intense vibration. I knew this time what was happening, and I didn't roll out of my body this time. I just sat up and got off the bed. However, this time it was not a delightful experience at all. It was downright scary. There was a fear that came over me that soaked right into my bones. I saw a dark figure sitting in the corner of my room, staring at my sleeping self on the bed and my sleeping wife. It didn't move. It didn't do anything. It just sat there. I wanted to get away. I walked around to the other side of the bed where my wife was and was about to leave the room via the window, but I couldn't. My body froze and I started sinking through the floor. I was in complete panic at this point. I felt trapped, helpless, and like I was sinking into a dark place that I would be stuck in forever. So I cried out, "God, please wake me up, get me out of this." And in that moment, I woke up.